Good afternoon, unwashed masses. I'm going to be running you through how to create this coffee table in Fusion 360. Along the way, we're going to learn how to use Fusion 360. I'm going to run you through what each of these skills does, along with some basic knowledge stuff. So by the end of it, you should be able to create at the very least, a small rectangular shaped piece of furniture in Fusion 360. So the first thing we want to do when we come to creating a model in Fusion is we want to work out where to start. So you usually start with either a picture or a sketch that you've drawn or an idea. It's better to have some sort of visual aid. So for this, I'm going to start with this bottom section here because that way I can build my model from the ground up, and that's the way it makes the most sense to me. So to start with, I'm going to create this rectangular shape in Fusion 360. So we'll jump over to Fusion. I've already modeled it, so I know what I'm doing, but we'll start again fresh. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create sketch. Then we're going to come down here to this bottom plane. We're going to click on this plane, and then we are going to create a model. So our plane is a 2D surface between any of our 3D axes. So we've got X, Y, and Z. The plane is a 2D surface between them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, which is one of the ones up here. If you can't find that, it's a rectangle, 2-point rectangle. I'll click on that. I'll come to my point of origin. You always want to start your sketch in the point of origin for the first sketch. I'll click once, and then I'll move my mouse. I can input my dimensions here, which saves me from doing it later. So I'm going to put in what I think is the dimensions of my table. I'm guessing it's roughly 800 millimeters long. And then if I press the Tab key, which is above caps lock, it'll jump to the other box. And then I'm going to type in, I think I'll go with 300, and I'll press enter. So 800 by 300 millimeters is our starting rectangle. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to use the offset tool. So if we jump back to here, we've got the offset tool here. Now, if we go to create, project include, no, sorry, it's in modify. Offset tool. So if I hover over this, it tells me what the tool does. So the offset tool copies from the selected sketch curves a specific distance from the original curves. Okay, so we've got our sketch here. If I press that button, or alternatively, you can press O on the keyboard. Good habit to get into using the keybinds. We're going to click on that, and then we can drag our slider. We want to drag it on the inside, and you'll notice this dimension is becoming a negative. So I'm going to make my number -30 because that's the distance, the width that I think this tube is. In real life, we'll be using the materials that we have in the workshop, so you'll have very preset dimensions for these materials, but for this model, we're just going to use what I've made up just by looking at the picture. From here, I'm going to press L. This brings up the line tool. You can alternatively click it up here. So I'll press L on the keyboard, and then I'm going to join my corners together. We want to model every individual piece of metal as a separate piece. So now what I'm going to do is I could click finish sketch, or finish sketch up here, does the same thing. I want to get out of my sketch and back into my 3D workspace. So I'm just going to make it faster, I'm just going to press E on the keyboard. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my two sides. I'm going to orbit my camera, and I'm going to type in 15 millimeters. That's going to make it pop up 15. I'm going to make it a new body. We want to make sure that we're setting these every extrusion, which is this operation we're doing, turning from a 2D sketch to a 3D object. We want to make sure that's a new body because we don't want anything joined yet. So we'll just leave that, make sure it's always selected as a new body. I'll click OK, and suddenly my sketch has disappeared. So I'll jump back here. We haven't used the extract project tool yet, but I'll come back to that. Over here we've got our folders. So we've got one for bodies, we've got one for sketches. If we click these arrows, it opens these up. So these show me the objects or the sketches that are in this current project that I'm working in. I'm going to click the eye next to this sketch 1 because that's my first sketch. I want to turn it back on because I want to access my sketch again. I'll press E one more time, and then I'll click on these two remaining sections. I'll then click on the top of this existing body, and that extrudes it to that height. Now you notice my operation is automatically a join. Change that to a new body, and then press OK. I can then come over here and turn my sketch off. So now I've created that bottom section of my model. So now I'm going to move on to one of my legs. I'm going to start with this leg on the end here. So what I'll do is I'll create a sketch. I then need to select the 2D plane that I want to create the sketch on. I'm going to select the edge of my leg here, the very side of it. So I'll click on that, and that's rotated my view. I'll zoom in a little bit, and then I'm going to come up here to create, project include, project. You can also press the P key. So if I press P, it brings up the project tool. Now what the project tool does is it projects the body's silhouette edges, or basically the bodies or the edges or the silhouette into the active sketch plane. So when I've got it selected and I click on this edge of my model and I press OK, if I turn these bodies off, you can see that it's essentially copied what that body looks like into the current sketch, which is the most useful thing because now we can join lines to this and it makes it really easy to click to stuff. I'll then get my rectangle tool, so I'll press R, and then I'm going to draw in a rectangle of how big I think that the overall leg size is. So we're doing the same thing as the base. So I think it might have been about 100 by 400 maybe. Actually, I'll do 350. So 100 by 350. I'll then dimension. So this is dimension tool. It lets me change the dimensions of things existing in the sketch. So I'm going to click on that, or I just press D, which is a lot faster. I'll click on these 2 points, and then I'll click off. Move my mouse and click. I'm going to set that to 70 millimeters. All right. I'm going to do the same thing as before. So press O to bring the offset tool up. Slide it in. It's a positive number. So this time we're going to go with 15 because that's how thick we extruded the base. And then, like last time, oh, that's actually different, but it doesn't matter. We're going to go in and add in corners. Finish the sketch. Press E to extrude. Extrude my 2 sides. And this time we're going to go -30 because we want, well, for me, I need the number going on the inside. So for me, it's a negative, new body. Turn the sketch back on. Press E. Click on the top one. Click on the bottom one. Orbit. Click on the inside face. Select that to make that a new body. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another set of legs, but this time over on this edge. So I'm around the corner on this edge just here. If you want to jump back to looking at it, you can click this look at button. Alright, so I'm going to do the same process. Press P to project, click on the side of my model, press enter, then press R for the rectangle tool, create a rectangle. I'll do the other way, create a rectangle, and we're going to make that 100 by 350. Enter. D for dimension, click on that point, move my mouse, and we're going to set that to 100. I'll then press O for my offset tool, click on my model, move the slider in, it's a positive, so we're going to go positive, not 30, sorry, 15. And then we'll press L, and we'll join our corners. Press E to extrude next to the sketch. Click on my 2 sides. I could orbit and click on this inside face. Set to a new body already. Turn the sketch back on. Press E. Click on my 2 profiles. Select the inside face. Change it to a new body. And we're done. Okay, I'll turn that sketch back off. Okay, how are we going? Done all that, sketch dimension, done that, mid-plane, okay. So the next step, what we're going to do, we could just draw these legs around this corner if we wanted to, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently because I want to show you some more skills. So we're going to use, so when we had the origin planes before, we can actually create our own planes, which is really useful. They're handy for doing things like what I'm about to show. So we click construct, we come down to mid-plane, and then I'm going to click on this inside face here. I'll orbit my screen, I'll click on this inside face here, and then I'll press OK. That's created a plane just floating exactly between these 2 points. So this is like a halfway point. I'll create a sketch on that plane, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, yeah, that's fine. I'll press P, I'll project this end face into my sketch, press enter. Then I'll press L to bring up my line tool. And now I'm just going to hover my cursor along here until a little triangle pops up, like that. I'll click in that spot, I'll move straight up, and then I'll click on the other side, then I'll press finish sketch. What we've just done is we've created a line that's exactly in the middle this way and the middle this way of our part. So this is like the center of our piece. We can use that as a center point to spin these around and create copies at the same time. So if we go to create and then mirror, sorry, we want to go to pattern, we want to go to circular pattern. We'll click on that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these side views. So I'll click on front. I need to be looking at it from the side. You could be looking at it from the end. That's also fine. I've got body selected, so I'm going to come down here, level with the inside section of this leg, bottom part of my leg. Okay, I don't want to be down here, I don't want to be up here. I need to be right in the middle of this leg, about down here. I'll click, I'll move my mouse up and to the left. You see that it's a yellow rectangle with blue dotted lines. If I go down the other way, or to the right, it's an orange rectangle with an undotted boundary. This means that anything touching the rectangle will get selected. This means anything completely within the rectangle will be selected. So I'm going to go top left, let go. All those are selected. I'll then change my selection to my axis and orbit. I'm going to click on our little center line. And if we had 3 rotations, it'll put it in some space. But if we put it down to 2, it doesn't mirror them, but it copies them around this central axis. We'll click OK, and then we've finished making our legs. So our legs are done now. We can just come down here, we can turn that sketch off because we don't need that right now. We can also open the construction folder because we'll need access to that later. I'm just going to turn that bodies folder off because it's a little bit complicated now. Okay, so the next step is to create our top. Now, instead of redrawing it all, I'm just going to use the midplane tool again. So if I click construct, midplane, I'll zoom in, I'll click on the top of this, and then the top of my base frame. That'll create a midplane that's exactly halfway up the legs. So then if I go to create, mirror, which is a direct copy, I'll select my body. So I'm going to select this one, this one, this one, and this one, all my base frame. I'll change my selection tool to this, to the mirror plane. And then that is going to mirror those objects across that. So it's perfectly symmetrical across that line. And there I've almost finished my top. Now, let's make sure we've got all these. So we've got pattern, combine tool, so that's the only one we'll touch on in a second. So when I look at this model, I know that our top is flush or it's level with the top of the edges. I know that that top needs to be joined some way. Now, I'm going to guess at how that's done. And the way we're going to do that is by creating some little triangular sections in the top edge. So I'm going to go to create sketch. I'm going to click on this top edge, and then I'm going to go around and I'm going to press P and project and click on all of these top edges. I'll click OK. Now what I'll do is I'll zoom into a corner. I'll press L for line tool. I'll create a line that goes across here. Then I'll press D to bring up my dimension tool. I'll click on this line, this bottom line, and I'm going to set that angle to 45 degrees. I'll then press D again, and I'm going to dimension this line to this point at a perpendicular angle. I don't have it out. I won't actually move anywhere, so that's perfect. We're going to dimension that at 30 millimeters because if we're using flat bar to create this little triangular section, we've got 30 millimeter flat bar. So if we set this to 30 millimeters, we know that it replicates the material in real life. That's great. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to press C. C will select the circle tool. I'll create a circle that is 5 millimeters. So before I click again, I just press enter to confirm that. I'll press L, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line that goes from the middle of the circle to that point. And then I can dimension that line and this bottom line. So click on both. That needs to be 45 degrees, and then we're going to set the length of that to about 27. Just kidding. 25. Okay, now what I'm going to do is finish my sketch. I'll orbit a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to press E. I'm going to click on this section, and we're going to make it a two-sided extrusion. So the bottom one side is going to come down. So if we orbit around, we're going to click on the bottom of our top pieces. That's going to bring it all the way down there. Just change it to a new body so we can see what's happening. And then now that's gone to a distance of 15 millimeters. If we have a look at that, it's automatically told it, okay, we're going 15. This one is then going to come down a distance of 12 because we want a 3 millimeter piece of metal left there because that's how big the metal is. So change this number to 12. So now we've got some 3 millimeter piece of metal. Press OK. Yours might be a little bit different, but basically you need to have two extrusions. One comes to the bottom of this top plate, and then the other one comes down 12 millimeters. Press OK. So now we've got a little piece of metal in there that has a hole in it that we can put a screw through to attach a piece of wood that's going to sit in here. So to make copies of that without actually having to draw it, we're going to use the mid-plane trick again. So we've already got, not that one, we've already got one down here for the two ends, a middle between the two ends. And we just need to make one for the sides. So if we go construct, mid-plane, we'll click on this edge, we'll orbit, we'll click on this edge, we've created a mid-plane, press OK, and now we can just mirror. Go to create, then down to mirror. We're going to select the body, which is going to be this little triangle piece, operation, selection. We'll change our selection to the mirror plane, we'll click on the mirror plane, that copies it across there, press OK. We'll turn that plane off now because we don't need it. We'll go back to create, down to mirror, we'll click on our two triangle bodies, change our selection to the mirror plane, and we're going to click on this plane down here. You can see that's copied them across here. We hit OK, and the frame, the metal frame, is now done, so we can turn off our plane. Now we can turn that sketch back on, and we can come in and press E, and we're going to extrude this whole inside section. And because our sketch only has this element in it, we just have to select these two sections because we don't want holes in our wood where that corner was. And now we can select, if we want to make it to object, we can come down, we can actually click on the top of this little plate, make that a new body, and we'll turn that sketch off. And there we have a nice little table. It's got all the legs. Now, it's not modeled perfectly. We didn't model the tubing, so all of this stuff is solid, but the external dimensions of all these pieces are correct, which is the main thing that matters. If you want to model the whole tubing, it's a little bit more complicated. It's a lot more complicated, actually, but this detail of modeling will let you be able to build a project pretty easily. TY for listening.